What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our week three college football predictions. As always, I got Ty joining me here to break down this week's games. But before we break down this week, we got to talk about last week. And we'll start it off with a not so hot start to our years for the locks of the week. It was looking great for me through those 3:30 games until the nightcap. And then that's just where it all went wrong for me. The under in the Boston College Michigan State. Well, considering it went to double overtime and both teams ended up scoring 30 plus, wasn't even close on that one. ASU lost, Michigan lost by a hefty margin. So my losses at least weren't like close, could have turned into wins.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest mistake was betting the Michigan game, expecting points out of our offense. Zach was there for my whole rant that I gave on that game, so neither of those worked out. And then the Ole Miss loss was just brutal if you bet that one. Kentucky down 10, kicked a field goal with about 15 seconds left to cover in that game. So that's a very bad beat there. And then Illinois destroyed the over almost on their own in the Illinois Duke game. So once again, back to the drawing board at 5-13.
Yeah, and then week two's results were wild, to say the least. And, obviously we had, what was it, four different games, and I went 3-1 in those, obviously giving me those two wins extra. But best game out of these, I mean, honestly, you probably didn't watch it, but it's going to be that Vanderbilt Virginia Tech. Vanderbilt has the case to be ranked at this point in the season with the teams they've beat. People, I mean, they beat a FCS team, and then you go on the road to face Virginia Tech. Tough place to play. And not only did you dominate them in the second half, but they pretty much forgot how to play football in my eyes. And that same goes for UNLV. Somehow, some way, this Dan Mullen team is finding ways to win games, and that's all you can ask for this early in the season. They're 3-0 with a win over UCLA. Yeah, they might have to start taking a little more serious here.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone's in on USF, rightfully so, but UNLV is right behind them for that group of five spot. And then I'm looking at Illinois and Vanderbilt. Those are two teams that I was a lot lower on than most people, but they have proved themselves. So they're both for real. Illinois rightfully deserves a spot in the top 10, and Vanderbilt not quite to that degree, but they're just proving that their success from last year wasn't exactly a fluke and that they're just a really well coached team and they're off to a great 2-0 start. And then I'll throw in the Michigan State Boston College game as well. Obviously, I'm a Michigan fan, so Michigan State, one of our big rivals. But I'll tip my cap. That was a great football game to watch, and maybe a turning point for their program under Jonathan Smith.
Yeah, then moving to week three, we're going to hit you with our locks here. I'm going the under in that Clemson Georgia Tech game. Purdue, I think they can cover at home. Purdue's playing a lot better than I think all of us thought they would at this point already. USF, and what they've done the first 2 weeks, there's no reason to bet against them again for the third straight week. Texas A&M, Notre Dame, I just feel like that's an under game. Nighttime, prime time, both teams looking for that signature win early. I just think that's going to be a defensive battle. Then LSU, I think they can cover against Florida. Um, LSU is starting to figure it out. I know last week wasn't really a big win for them. It wasn't pretty, but a win's a win this early, and I think that defense is going to come ready to play. Then Vandy plus 4.5. We're high on the Vandy train, so let's keep it rolling here at South Carolina.
Well, I'm going to right the ship this week. I'm off to a bad start this year, but that all changes here in week three. We're going NC State minus 7.5. It seems like a lot of points for them to give on the road, but Wake Forest is, in fact, just that bad, where I think NC State will be just fine, and I think they cover that. I'm going Northwestern plus 28.5. I know Oregon just beat Oklahoma State by 1,000, but I think that says a little bit more about Oklahoma State even though Oregon's a great team this year. But 9 a.m. body clock for Oregon. That's always tough. People overlook that. Lots of travel. Northwestern, yes, very bad. But maybe the wind will be high in that Lakeside Stadium, and I think they can cover 28.5. I'm going Miami. I feel like the Grinch doing that, but I just think USF two monumental wins to start the season. I think that's really tough to get back up for a third game in a row, especially going on the road to a top five team. I'm agreeing with you on Vanderbilt to cover. I have doubted them all of last year and the first 2 weeks this year. I'm done doing that. And then I got a parlay for my last two. I'm going Florida and the over in the Florida game. I mean, Billy Napier's coaching for his job at this point. The players were embarrassed last week, and what better opportunity to turn it around than going to LSU and putting up a fight. So I think they score some points and they cover.
And we're going to start this weekend off with a disagreement. It's going to be Colorado and Houston. And Colorado was a few plays away from being 2-0 against Georgia Tech and possibly even ranked at this point in the season. And I think Houston is very overrated. I didn't really have them doing too much this year in the Big 12, and I think this is where we're going to find that out. I know Colorado's on their third string quarterback, technically, with Ryan Staub, but I think he's been the guy to lead this program all along. He's been there the longest. Sat under Shador, and I think he's going to bring that calm composure, knowing the offense to light here. And I think Colorado goes on the road. I wouldn't say it's a big stunner, but people are going to take note of this win on the road to kick off their Big 12 season.
Well, I'm going the other way. For some reason, I was very high on Houston at the start of the season, and I still think they're my surprise team out of the Big 12. I just think Willie Fritz did such a good job over at Tulane. Now coming over to Houston, I think he's primed for a good run there as well. And like you said, just a lot of quarterback carousel going on with Colorado. I think that kind of gets to him here in a road night environment. And I think Houston turns some heads and gets to 3-0.
And then also on Friday night, K-State, the world is on fire for them versus Arizona. And if you've watched any football the last 3 weeks and somehow watched K-State, I'm sorry. They just don't have it this year. I didn't know that losing their star running back would pretty much mean the whole season's over for K-State. And it's kind of how it's been. Squeak by an FCS team and just don't show up for your first two games. They play competitive games, but they just can't find it when it matters most, and that worries me. And Arizona, I think, is a team that could be a sleeper team here in the Big 12. So give me the Wildcats at home to stay undefeated.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me because I really don't think Arizona's good at all. To be quite frank, I think they're going to have a long season. But Kansas State gives me strong 2024 Florida State vibes where they go to Ireland, lose a close game, and then the wheels have just immediately fallen off for them. Very well could be 0-3. They had to eke that one out against North Dakota in week one. So just a brutal start to the season. Now you got to go on the road. And I just think the vibes are so low over there that they are going to take another loss here on the road and start Big 12 play 0-1. And like I said, I don't expect much out of Arizona. Kansas State just that bad at the moment.
Then we'll move to Saturday. And I think this game is getting overlooked this week. And I'm going Georgia Tech and Haynes King. I think Haynes King is going to have a big day here to do enough against this tough Clemson defense. But this tough Clemson defense was down 16-0 to Troy last week at home. And this was my preseason pick to win it all. I'm not confident in that at all. We might have to fire up another one of these brackets here at the end of September to see where we're standing. But as of right now, I don't even think Clemson's the team to beat in the ACC because I think that's going to be Georgia Tech here with a huge home win.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one a little bit. I do think, yes, last week was pretty bad for Clemson, down 16-0 to Troy. I do think that has a little bit of a trap game feel to it last week, though. You coming off a loss in a top 10 matchup with LSU, and they knew they had this game on the horizon, which probably is going to be their toughest regular season conference game this year. So I think there's a little trap game vibes there last week, and I think this week they kind of right the ship. And, Georgia Tech has been everyone's dark horse, it seems, this year. And I think they live up to it by giving Clemson a very good fight. But I think the Tigers pull it out. There's just so much winning that Dabo has done over the last decade. It's too hard for me to doubt him.
And then also at 12, I think this one speaks more on Alabama. They got to win this one big again to really get the respect they deserve that they were getting coming into the year. And it's crazy because, you have a team like Boise State gets blown out and everybody's already off of their bandwagon. Then USF goes into Florida, everybody's already off of their bandwagon. But Bama, everybody hopped off their bandwagon, but their team that they lost to is top 10 in AP poll right now. So I think Bama is not getting enough credit for having a good team, but yeah, you got to win this game by at least 3 touchdowns and cover here. Because I think anything closer, if it's like a 10-point victory, I think those same concerns and questions are going to be there next week.
Yeah, I think Bama's going to win big as well. I think Wisconsin just has a shell of an offense this year. They've struggled in their first two matchups. Last week was one of those kind of fake blowouts where it's close most of the game and they just run away in the fourth quarter against Middle Tennessee. So I think this week Alabama really rights the ship. I think a lot of fans obviously have been on Kalen DeBoer, missed the playoff last year, and then that week one loss this year. So I think this team, for once, actually has a lot to prove to people. So I think they're gonna go out and show themselves this week and come out with a big win.
Yeah, in the Middle Tennessee note, I went to their week one game against Austin P and they
Yeah,
lost by 20 at home. So that's kind of some
yeah,
concern there for
that's a bad Middle
Wisconsin.
Tennessee team.
Yeah, and the team that they played last week is Georgia Austin P. And Georgia didn't really have that much of a performance that really you would write home about 28-3 final. And because of that, I'm going Tennessee at home in Neyland. The hype around this game coming into the season was, yeah, Georgia's probably going to walk in there and steamroll them. But the tide has turned here in the last 2 weeks. Tennessee has found out they can just score on anybody. And it's going to be through the air, not just through the ground. And Georgia is a team that I don't think they can throw the ball. I was listening to the Solid Verbal today, and I want to see what your guess is here. What do you think Georgia's average yards, like passing yards per play, like through air yards, do you think it is?
Air yards, it's got to be low. I'm gonna go 6.
It's 1.8 is their air yards that they throw. So I'm assuming Tennessee is just going to stack the box every play and
Yeah.
play man until this team can throw it deep. And that causes concern for me for Georgia going into a hostile environment. They're favored on the road. I'm hammering this money line and I'm hammering this plus 3.5 for Tennessee. And they're going to start to really, people are going to have to really look at this Tennessee team moving forward because if they can win this game, then I think a lot of people are already going to pencil them in, possibly in the SEC championship and possibly even into the playoff.
I do think it's worth arguing. This Tennessee team could be better than what we saw last year, and I think that was something no one really would have expected at the start of the season. Obviously, they had the quarterback situation with Nico, which I think they upgraded at the position when you're looking back on it now. But that being said, I think even Georgia going on the road, Neyland, one of the maybe underrated still, but one of the best atmospheres in college football. It's a very difficult place to play, but I still think the Dogs, a proven winning program over the last few years, I think they can get it done. Whether they have to rely on their defense, like you said, the quarterback struggles have been there, but I still think the Dogs have just enough to go in there and get past Tennessee. I think you got to see it to believe it a little bit with Joey Aguilar, because yes, even though Georgia has struggled on offense, I think their defense is still a step above Tennessee. So Aguilar is going to have to really dominate that quarterback battle for the Vols to win it. I don't quite see that happening this week.
And also at 3:30 at USC and Purdue. Now I have Purdue plus 20.5, but USC is a team that no one's really talking about here out west. And I think they're going to get this win here. It'll probably be about a 13 to 17 point victory for USC. And what Lincoln Riley's doing out there, I think is great because they're under the radar. No one's really talking about them. And I think that helps that USC team because there's always been high expectations for Lincoln Riley and whatever team he's at. And the higher the expectations, it seems like the worse and worse he does. So maybe with no expectations this year, this USC team is going to somehow, some way coast into a 5-0, 6-0 start and then gain that recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think the expectations being really low this year might help them. And they were off to a very good start. They haven't really played anybody, but they've looked very solid in their first two games, scoring 70 in week one. So I think this will be a little bit of a test. You know, Purdue was projected by most to be the worst team in the Big Ten, coming off a 1-11 season, but they've quickly turned things around. They're a very well coached team now, which you could not say at all under Ryan Walters. But I think Barry Odom's got this program in a much better spot and will really turn things around. But that being said, it is only year one, so I think USC shouldn't have too much trouble going to West Lafayette.
And probably the best game the CW will ever see on their network is USF Miami. Two top 10 Heisman hopefuls at this point in the season. USF's Byron Brown, Miami's Carson Beck, and I think it's going to be a duel. And I'm going USF on the road because why not? I'm on that wave. Tampa's going to be lit for this game. They're definitely going to make that trip down to Miami. A lot more USF fans now than there were just 2 weeks ago. And Miami's not known to really sell out that Hard Rock Stadium. So who knows? Maybe USF's going to take over here. I think when it's all said and done, USF has nothing to lose. They already got their two signature wins for the year. So, they could go 10-2 and they're going to make the playoff. Where Miami, they can't lose this game. So there's a lot more added pressure to Miami. So give me USF here on the road. I'm riding for it. If not 2 times, why not make it third time's a charm and just keep on rolling?
Yeah, how awesome is the 12-team playoff right now for South Florida? They're coming off two ranked wins to start the season. Last week, going into the swamp and coming out with a win. So that means this week they're essentially playing with house money. If they could go in and lose this game, they could lose it handily, and then just turn around, win the American Conference. And I don't see anyone overtaking them for that Group of Five spot with their resume. So, yeah, nothing to lose really here for South Florida, and that's a dangerous thing. But that being said, I just think it's really tough to get up for three really tough games in a row. Props to them for their non-conference schedule because this is unbelievable. But I think Miami at home finally, uh, it seems like every time they get a big win in years past, they turn around and lose a game they shouldn't. I think they finally keep it going this year, get out to a 3-0 start, and really silence some doubters for that program.
And then we got Vandy in South Carolina, and I'm going Vandy here on the road. Pavia and company have been turning heads, obviously late last year and early into this year. They're just keeping that momentum and rolling it over. And I think their over under this year was 4.5. And if they can go into South Carolina, who's the 11th ranked team in the country, and you're going to have them only favored by 4.5, really speaks volumes. Vegas knows something we don't. I like Vandy here on the road, get that signature win because last year they couldn't win on the road against a big team. This year, if they want to prove it to me, you got to do it early to stay afloat in this conference. And South Carolina hasn't looked too promising to me in a way. I mean, that Virginia Tech win just looks even worse now after Vandy blew the
Yeah.
doors off them. So I'm going Vandy here on the road in an upset.
Yeah, I was gonna say they both have a common opponent through two games, and Vanderbilt played them on the road and thumped them, and South Carolina kind of played with their food a little bit. So I think that maybe plays into the small spread here, even at South Carolina and that night. And I know I keep doubting Vanderbilt, and they keep proving me wrong, but I think South Carolina wins a very tight one here at home. Obviously, I picked Vanderbilt to cover, so I think it's within a field goal when it's all said and done. But I think it just comes down to Lenora Sellers making a play late and getting the Gamecocks a win because they need this one. If you look at their schedule, they cannot afford to lose this game and make the college football playoffs. So they have to come out with a win, and I think they will just barely.
And at 7:30, you got Arkansas and Ole Miss. And Ole Miss might be looking towards the future here because they have a tough Tulane team coming in next week. And this Arkansas team is no joke. They've been winning games by a big margin. I get it hasn't been against FBS programs, but wins are wins. And, you know, first SEC matchup of the year for both teams, you can, kind of throw out what you think of expectations because it's a big conference game. But with that being said, I think Ole Miss at home, if they lose this one, my panic meter is through the roof for Ole Miss.
Yeah, it just feels like one that Lane Kiffin needs, coming off just several 8-4, 9-3 seasons, and this feels like another one of those teams for Ole Miss. But you got to get the wins where you can in this tough conference. So I think in the night environment, Ole Miss will take care of business here. I was really close to putting them in as a lock to cover. Only 7 points at home, but if that just gives me Vegas knows something vibes, so I would not be super surprised if this ends up being a very close game.
And then probably the biggest game of the week in some eyes, Texas A&M goes on the road to face Notre Dame. And I'm going the Irish here at home. Not liking the 6.5 at home because Notre Dame has still yet to prove it to me that they're going to take deep shots and at least try to beat you by the air in some points of the game. So this game's going to be a Jeremiah Love game, and I think it continues. They went in last year and beat Texas A&M on the road, and I think Notre Dame keeps the train rolling here, getting their first win of the year, which was pretty crazy in week 3. Um, and this Irish team has to win this game because if they don't, more than likely they would absolutely have to win out to even have a
Yeah.
chance to get into the playoff.
Yeah, I think it's a big Jeremiah Love night. on Saturday. I think that A&M defense has showed that they're a little susceptible to the run game. They've given up, I want to say, 20 points in their first two games, or at least close to it, against much inferior opponents. So going into South Bend should be a very tough environment. And I think Jeremiah Love just has a big game, which will also help kind of settle in CJ Carr. So I think this Notre Dame offense will just be a little too much. And I think the Irish sweep the home and home with Texas A&M.
And then a huge game coming into the year, and it still is a pretty big game here, even after Florida's loss. But Florida goes on the road to face number 3 LSU, and I'm going with the Tigers here at home. Nussmeier in that defense, I just think are going to be too much for Florida because, well, you lose at home to USF, who's a good team. Now you go on the road at night to one of the toughest environments in SEC play, and probably 2 times, if not 3 times better defense than you faced last week. Yeah, I have concerns there for Lagway and company. So give me Nussmeier and the boys here, and Brian Kelly's got this team playing right. And LSU's schedule is no joke here from here on out. After they have a cupcake game next week, it's Ole Miss, South Carolina, at Vandy, Texas A&M, Bama. So feels like you got to win this one here to really get the momentum churning in your way as we enter SEC play.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a bounce back performance here from Florida. I think this program still has a lot of pride, and coming off that really embarrassing loss, I mean, you can't really sugarcoat that one. Really self-imposed final drive there from South Florida, aided by 30 yards of penalties from Florida. So I think this team's going to be very motivated here. And similar to South Florida, just for a different reason, they kind of have a nothing to lose mentality this week. Nobody expects them to win this game. Playing the top three team on the road in one of, like you said, one of the more difficult environments. So I actually expect them to come out and put their best foot forward. But that being said, you don't just walk into Death Valley at night and come out with a win unless you're a Nick Saban coach team. So I think Florida, although they're going to put up a fight, it's not going to be enough, and LSU gets a close win.
In the last game of the week, we got Duke and Tulane. And beginning of the week, Tulane was favored by 2.5. Odds have shifted to Duke 1.5, and I still don't know why. Because Tulane's at home, they're off a win. But I think it all comes down to the hands of Jake Retzlaff of Tulane. The quarterback does it all. He's only thrown for 277 yards this year and 2 touchdowns. But on the ground, he has 177 rushing and 2 touchdowns. So they have to rely on him more than ever in this one. Manny Diaz coach team. Obviously, we know him for his defense, but it was kind of non-existent last week against Illinois. And now you have that defense, which you know your famous saying is a run game and the defense travels on the road. Well, if it wasn't there at home, I don't know if I can trust it on the road here. So I'm going with the Green Wave here to keep on rolling and keep their name atop that Power Five conversation.
Yeah, it's another one I kind of went back and forth on here. I think Tulane's performance last week kind of did me in, really struggling. I think it was South Alabama, really struggling in that game, almost giving it away in the fourth quarter. And then I still think Duke is a really good team. I think a lot of people are just going to look at the score last week and just, completely be out on Duke. Yes, they lost 45-19, but that game was close for 3 quarters, and Illinois just ran away with it late. So I think Duke bounces back here and gets a big road win over Tulane. I think this would really boost them as they head into ACC play.
Yeah, and before we break it down here, last game, you gotta go watch that Minnesota Cal game at 10:30 at night. If you're still up, that's probably the game to go watch because 2 underrated teams at this point in the year, probably gonna be a good game. But if you do, that's great. If not, oh well, it's West Coast, who really cares, right? So we're gonna break it down here. That's it. That's all we got. Check back next week to see how we did. Hopefully Ty can have a 500 or better week yet again. And
I'll be
obviously,
back.
hopefully I can keep it rolling, but more often than not, that's not how it works. So until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.